There was a time in my life when I was receiving messages from my environment that said, you shouldn't be feeling what you're feeling. You should not be thinking what you're thinking. This all came to a head when a family member looked at me and said, your body shouldn't be looking like it's looking. And something snapped inside of me. And I decided to take control over what seemed like a controlless life. And I started to starve myself. And I did this for a long enough time that I had to recover after a while from a mindset that said, don't listen to your feelings, don't listen to your thoughts, and do not listen to your body. While all of this happened while I was a teenager, I still look back at that time, and I am grateful for the process I've gone through to recover, to reclaim my relationship with my body, my thoughts, and my feelings. And so I am inviting a specialist to come and join me so that if you have lost touch with your feelings, your thoughts, and your body, you can recover as well. If this sounds interesting to you, join myself and somatic trauma practitioner Galina Denzel. She's also the author of Peace with Self, Peace with Food. Join us for this free webinar, and maybe you too can find the recovery you've been seeking. Welcome, welcome. Please go to chat or come online if you want to during this first few minutes. Tell us where you're joining from. We're so excited that you're here. Again, I'm Lynn Christian from Soul Salt, and we are just so delighted that you are joining us today. This is part of the series we call Courageous Growth. And I am a proponent of courageous growth. In my work as a coach, I've been coaching since 1998. I'm one of those rare people that have certifications all over the place. I have a master certification from the International Coach Federation. I've worked with people like Marshall Goldsmith, who is the premier executive coach. I've worked as the director of innovation for Franklin Covey. If you know Franklin Covey, the planning company. That's where I met with Shannon. I was director of innovation for their coaching group. So I've been doing coaching for a long time. And one of the things that we do here at Soul Salt is assist people to bring their best self forward. Last year, I was able to get my book, Soul Salt, the Field Guide, published, and we were able to become an Amazon bestseller and get our work out there. And so that's a little bit about what we do here at Soul Salt. This series is to fulfill one of our commitments to count our success in heartbeats instead of dollar signs. And so Shannon and I connect with people in our network each month and invite someone in. So if you are enjoying this particular webinar, you may want to be on that mailing list, that email list, so you can see what else we are doing. Tomorrow, we are hosting a free webinar on career reinvention. A third of our clients here at Soul Salt are reinventing the way they do their work. And so we assist them even if they don't know what they're going to reinvent toward. So if you know somebody who needs that community, we also offer that community. So we'll do a little bit of the protocol, and then I'll introduce our guest, Galina. So the protocol will be to remain on mute, have your screen on so we can see your faces with the camera on, come on screen, go to chat if you have questions, or hold your questions until the end, because Galina is really masterful in the way that she handles her time and her pacing. And she has created today's presentation in such a way that there will be time for Q&A at the end. So if you want to hold on to it, you're welcome to hold on to it. Trying to think, Shannon, is there anything else I need to think of to bring up?
Can't think of anything.
Okay. All right. So today we're going to talk about 4 things. What does it mean to listen and respond to your body signals? What are we listening to and listening for? What happens to the listening when we've had trauma and overwhelming life experiences? And for all honest, we all fit in those categories of having those experiences. And then finally, how listening to this body, our unique personal needs and values from the inner well-being system are talking to us. Are we hearing those? And I'm grateful Galina added those, because those are 2 of the chapters in my book. But let me introduce you to Galina if you don't know her. And I know some of you are here because you know her and you adore her and you learn from her. So Galina, thank you for having that kind of presence. Galina is a somatic trauma practitioner, and that is a field in the therapy world and in trauma healing that I am fascinated with and participate with. And I have two therapists that I see for that very modality. And she is also the author of Peace with Self and Peace with Food, which is an incredible book about healing trauma and this approach where we get into the emotional eating habits, or we get into the signals that our emotional body is sending us. And if we don't listen to our body, we're missing so much wisdom that we could have. So I know Galina, we really got to know each other, I believe, Galina, when we were walking through the streets of Amsterdam. And we were talking and graffiti and enjoying the sights and just sort of decompressing from the activity. We'd had different kinds of activities we were part of. And that's when I really got to understand who you were, how mindful and deliberate you are, how joyful you are, and also how curious you are, and how you find answers through deliberate practices. So you are in for a treat if you don't know Galina. She is one of those favorite people on my list of human beings who not only is her own healing work, assisting others to go deep and do theirs. So Galina, welcome. What would you like to say to start?
Well, I would like to say how touched I am that so many people have responded to your invitation to be curious about inner listening and inner attunement. I was checking in with myself earlier. I was just deeply moved. And to see those of you who are present and past students here as well, and to see colleagues and friends' names, it's just lovely. I'm really moved and really touched. And I want to say something about you, Lynn. Would that be okay?
Certainly, I trust you.
Okay. So those of you who've read my book and love my book, there would be no book if it wasn't for Lynn. And very few people know that. Some of you who came to the book birthday party, the first one, know that. But I initially wrote my book for my students. And Lynn was my coach at the time. And I said, Lynn, look at what I've written for my students. And she said, no, this is not for your students. This is the book. And I was like, what do you mean this is the book? I just wrote it for my students. And so she was the first person to read it. Lynn was the first person to read it. And Roland, who's a publishing coach, read it after they read it. And it was like, maybe this is a book. And not only did it become a book, but it's kind of become the foundation of my work. And you can read Lynn's words on the cover, on the back cover, and inside some of the front, and on Amazon and on my website, and I think everywhere. So you can also see behind me, right over there is my book, and right in front of it is Lynn's book, because I use Lynn's book almost every day when I work. And so those books are behind me, and they've got my back. I feel like Lynn always has my back. Thank you for who you are in the world and bringing me here. And if you've ever written me an email telling me you're between jobs or asking me what to do, I most likely sent you Soul Salt's way and said, let Shannon and Lynn talk to you. And I hope that if you've done that in the past and haven't followed through, that today is an inspiration to do that. I believe that Lynn is one of the people. Let me pull back a little bit. If you know me, you know, like I'm a yellow lab. I'm very excited to know you. I think you're amazing. And sometimes I'm surprised by life when I'm like, why aren't people as amazing as I think? I think everyone's just absolutely extraordinary. When I find out that's not true, when people do something interesting, I'm like, what? Lynn actually has the skill to see that you're amazing. I really see it, see the best parts of you, without that yellow lab thing that I carry around that tends to see things better than they are. Lynn sees them amazing just as they are. And I just feel so blessed to be in your presence.
Thank you. You're so welcome. I've had few experiences as profound as seeing your manuscript and recognizing it for what it was. It was spark of intuition that could not be denied. So I'm glad you put it
Yeah.
into book form. And I'm glad you're going to share the essence of it and some of the things you've learned over the years. And let's thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you. And let's jump in.
Let's do it.
So I don't know exactly where to start except the beginning, which is, what does it really mean to listen to your body, according to Galina?
So I come here as a translator of many brilliant minds and many brilliant teachers and modalities that I've studied. And so when we say according to me, it's really like I find myself as a translator from like 20 different languages and disciplines that help us reconnect with the body. And I would like to answer with an experiment. Would you all be willing to join me? And you can join me on camera, or you can join me off camera, however you prefer. And the invitation is to bring your hands to the midline of your body. And just to put gentle pressure, very gentle pressure, like the kind of pressure you'd put when you want to sense into a surface, but without pushing so hard that all you feel is the pushing. And if you want to push a little harder, you can push a little harder and then back off a little bit. So you're just sensing into the surface of your hands. And notice the temperature, the texture, the quality of dryness or moisture. And then rub your hands just gently up and down. And find a pace that you like. Find a pace, maybe you want to go slow. Maybe you want to go faster. Just find a pace that you like. And as you're doing this, as you're noticing the friction, agitation, movement, what really draws your attention? Is it the stickiness? Is it the dryness? Is it maybe you're hearing the sound of your hands? What do you notice about this action? And then pause and see, is there an echo of what we just did? Maybe a buzzing or a tingling or a throbbing or a sense of electricity moving. And if you tune in with your heart area and with your center, digestive system, belly, maybe there's something there too that's woken up. And you can take your hands apart, maybe let them rest on your thighs or on your desk, right? Mine are just kind of like this. And just notice now that they're not together, now that they're apart, perhaps there's even more of an afterglow or an echo of what we just did. And I invited you to notice things like warm, cool, clammy, sticky, dry, damp, heavy, light, buzzing, tingling, still. And we call those sensations. And so, in a very broad sense, what it means to listen to the body is to have a process of inner attunement, paying attention to sensations, and then paying attention to what's connected to the sensations, emotions, thoughts, images, movement impulses, memories, associations. You know that restaurant where we went last week? No, which one? The one with the sticky tables. Oh, yeah, I know exactly which one you're talking about. The one with the sticky tables. There's not many people that would describe a restaurant as the one with the sticky tables. But if you're talking to a massage therapist, that's your way in. If you are talking to an engineer, it might be the one with you know, the very square roof. I don't know. I have very little left brain on board. I'm very right-brained. But, you know, the one with the sticky tables. And that is listening to the body, is a process of tuning into sensation, noticing that those sensations, as they organize, they mean something based on previous experiences. And then hopefully being able to respond to those sensations and what's attached to them, emotions, images, thoughts, movement impulses, memories. Or another thing we can do is, if we don't respond, is to respond later, or we can respond by not responding. That's also a response, right? And so then the response is an override, or an ignoring, or a numbing, or a moving away. That's also a response. And so in very, very short, it's listening and responding, or responding by not responding to sensations and what is attached to them. Did I make sense? Did this kind of land? Yeah. Okay.
So there are some sensations, let's say, and maybe you can be a translator, as you said you would be, where we may have sensations that seem like they're originating in the body, and yet they are distorted. How do we listen and know if something's distorted or if something's ringing true?
Okay, so I love this question. So has anyone ever heard this thing, the body never lies? Okay, the body never lies is like drink 8 glasses of water. Like if you go online and type drink 8 glasses of water, you're going to see all these websites that tell you to drink 8 glasses of water. There's zero scientific evidence for that. But it's been repeated enough times that if I ask anybody, like, how many glasses of water should you drink a day? And they're like, 8. It's like, yeah, that's true. So that the body never lies. I don't know who originally said that. It's probably in quotes somewhere, and people keep sharing it. What a terrible thing to say. That's not true. Because the body lies all the time. Body lies all the time. And there's a couple of ways that I see this distorted in culture, where well-meaning people will say, well, just listen to your body and it's going to give you the right response. And then you see a meme on Instagram that said, I listened to my body, it told me to eat a pizza, and now what? Right? And it's supposed to be funny, but it's also like, what is happening here? Where if it's always true what you're hearing, and here with the whole pizza, we're talking about an impulse that's uninhibited, right? There's a disinhibition. It's like my body told me to drink two bottles of wine, or whatever it is. That there's a way that we're taught that the body doesn't lie, which isn't true. So one distortion is, we're told just listen to your body and everything's going to be okay. And that's kind of like a cognitive distortion or idea. The other one is that something's been happening, at least in the United States. I'm from Eastern Europe, which is what you hear in my voice if you don't know me, and very much kind of still living in both worlds. It's not so much in Eastern Europe yet, but it's probably coming. In the West, where medical care has become extremely litigious, one of the things that is happening is medical professionals will tell you to listen to your body to tell them what to do in a medical situation. And it's like, well, we can do this or we can do this. And the patient's like, I don't know. And the medical practitioner is like, well, just listen to your body. I'm sorry, I cannot listen to my body because Listening to the body means that I can tune in and I can hear sensations. I'm going to show you some slides about that, that give me information about my body state. Now, those sensations are based on previous experience. I was warm or cold when I was a little child. A parent came, did the right thing, and that's how I learned that when I sense this, this is what helps. Does that make sense? Is that tracking kind of how the learning of what helps and how we listen happens? It happens through our parents assisting us. In a medical situation, you're typically very worried. Especially if you're sitting in a dentist chair and they're asking you, which of the two materials would you like in your jaw that you have no information or knowledge about? You're already distressed. So what you're going to be hearing in your body are the signals of distress. And so when somebody says, well, just tune into your body and find out how to solve this medical problem they have no information about, you didn't go to medical school, it ends up actually getting exploited. So the listen to your body is kind of a cop-out in the wellness and fitness world, like, well, just listen and everything's going to be fine. And you're not going to want that pizza, which is not true because we want the pizza. And when I ask my friends, if you only had a day to live, what would you do? Everybody said, I would eat whatever the hell I want. Everybody said, we're going out for croissants, Galina. That's what we're doing if we only have a day to live. Why is that such a common answer? Because the soft animal of the body wants what it wants, right? If we want to quote Mary Oliver here. So that's one way that it gets exploited. Then it gets exploited in the medical space. And no wonder that we are confused. Because when we tune in, the assumption is that listening to the body is that you're going to hear information that's correct about how to take care of yourself now. I'm having a little bit of a sore throat. I'm going to make some hot water with lemon. That's pretty straightforward, but a lot of things in life are not that straightforward. And so there's a lot of other noise that's in the body moment to moment, and things can get distorted by your nervous system being in a state of arousal or shutdown, what we know as fight, flight, or freeze, like it is in most medical situations, since I gave that example. Or you might be tuning into something that is from an alternate timeline. You might be tuning into something that's from when you were 2 years old that was similar to this situation right now. And as an adult, you might have all the capacity to respond to what's going on internally and respond so you can take care of yourself externally. But you need to be able to tease apart and unbraid what is what. And you're not going to learn how to swim while you're drowning. There has to be dedicated spaces for our self-care, which is what I create in my work. And Lynn, I know you create in your work, that there needs to be dedicated spaces for our self-care where we can practice listening when we're not under pressure, or when we're not in hyperarousal, when we're not shut down. And then learning how to listen for everything, we know, oh, what I'm hearing is my arousal, what I'm hearing is my shutdown, what I'm hearing is a 2-year-old imprint that feels very familiar, versus listening for biologically relevant information, which is what most people refer to as listening to the body. And that's where I know, Lynn, we've spoken about multiple brain intelligence, and you have a TED talk about it that's exceptional, where we actually listening to the body is one stream of information. And there's multiple streams of information, and we're going to do a little practice today around that, to be able to align streams of information, have them be coherent and integrated so that it makes sense. Otherwise, all we have is feelings, and it's really, really hard based on sensations and feelings to take care of yourself if you don't have a way to know what's what. Am I landing? Am I making sense here? Yeah. I feel like I went in the bushes a little bit with the distortions, but just wanted to bring these two examples of what happens in medical settings, what happens in health and wellness settings, which is on one end being naive and just not knowing the whole picture in the health and wellness space, and in the other space being outright manipulative, so that we don't have to carry responsibility in a system that's litigious.
So one thing that's pretty evident is that this is a process of attunement. And if you want to speak more about the layers of attunement, please do, because even in the multiple brain integration techniques, we can't begin the coaching or the questioning process until someone has that sine wave sort of neutral zone inside their body with their autonomic nervous system. So I would love for you to dive in a little bit to attunement and then maybe springboard off of that, Galina, as to one of the things that's evident to me in knowing some of your work is that this listening is a process. And for each of us, it may feel a little different or be a little different. So I don't know where you want to start by jumping into that, but there are a couple of things there that I feel like, there's a connection there. And that's what I'm wondering about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the people who are here, you're not, how do I say this? You're somebody who's already listening, or you wouldn't be here. And maybe you're looking for a refinement of what you're hearing, what you're finding out, or what to do about it. And what's complex in our bodies and having a nervous system that is based on millions and millions of years of evolution is that oftentimes we're not in that space that Lynn was speaking about. That's the ventral, what we call the ventral, the safe and social, the rest and digest space, where when you tune in, it's clear and there's clarity. But instead, there might be noise. There might be a lot going on. So one of the most important things to do is to understand how the interoceptive system, which is the system that gives us sensations as signals that travel from the body up so that we can take care of what is being signaled, how that system can actually get hijacked by states of high arousal or states of shutdown or alternate timelines that keep repeating themselves in the present. And that it's actually really, really important to have a way as we start to come into the body, and I might offer a practice here to illustrate this, as we start to come into the body, to start to come through the places that feel more open, more receptive, more connected, less activated or less shut down, so that the body as a vessel can be a space in which we can come for an experience that's neutral or mildly pleasurable, instead of an experience that is one that makes us want to go away. Does that make sense as I'm saying this? That every time I tune into the body, if it's chaos, or if it's incredibly uncomfortable, why would I want to go there? Why would I want to tune in? And because the brain has this orientation towards what's wrong, to keep us safe, that oftentimes when we wake up in the morning, we immediately make a list of everything that's wrong. Oh, my back and my jaw, and there's a twitch in my eye. But no matter what's happening that doesn't feel great, at the same time, there's always experiences that feel neutral or pleasurable at the same time. And so I'll invite you, if you're willing to join me, to just drop inside for a few moments and see if you can find somewhere in your body, and it can be literally the size of a quarter, like it doesn't have to be a big area, that feels okay or okay-ish. that you notice, oh, there's ease, there's calm, there's openness, there's warmth, there's movement, there's a sense of flow or a sense of peace. And if you're looking for this quality that you can rest in, that you can just be in that space, you can rest your attention there. And maybe it's on the tips of your fingers, maybe it's the tip of your nose, maybe it's the soft part of your ears, maybe it's the tops of your feet, maybe it's the soft part of the forearm on the inside. It can be kind of off the beaten track. It might not be something that you notice every day.
Yeah.
And then as you find that, just let yourself be for like 30 seconds with the qualities that are there. And if the qualities of ease or calm or openness or peace or receptivity or gentle movement or flow, if those qualities could expand just 10% outside that area, what would that be like? Just to allow that. Maybe it's the pause at the end of your exhale that allows you to have that resting place from it. And so starting to listen for what is well, what is okay or okayish. And that's where practice begins. Can I look for areas that are okay or okayish? And that little by little, I can start to increase the time I spend tuning in, attuning to sensation. And for some people, it's very hard because you go in and you find numb or just kind of covered over or muffled. It's like you don't feel. Like what I feel is that I don't feel. And that's okay. We go on the edges of where it is the most uncomfortable. Where is it the least uncomfortable that you're not feeling? In that, a landscape of numb, where is it the most okay to stay with it? Because numbness is the highest level of feeling. You feel, and at some point you have to turn it off. So there's a lot of sensation in the numbness. In the beginning, we just tune in with that. But if you're somebody who has access to sensation, not everything's kind of numbed over, then finding what is neutral, what is mildly pleasurable, what is okay or okayish. That's my invitation to you. And 30 seconds. Can I hang out there for 30 seconds? And then as your 20, 30 seconds complete, then as soon as you do that, moving your attention outside of your body, finding something in the space in which you are that is of color or has a beautiful shape or is in some way pleasurable to the eye. So you move your attention from what is okay or okayish in the body, you hang out there for 20, 30 seconds, then you move out into what's okay in the environment. Oh, I really like Lynn's glasses. The frames of the glasses are really, wow, that's so cool. Is that orange? Is that pink? It's really cool. But I get to move my attention out to something else that's interesting, that spikes my curiosity, where I can explore and have the curiosity of an explorer. And so that tends to help not swing from, oh, something was okay-ish in my body, and as soon as I started paying attention, my stomach is now clenching. So we can spend 20, 30 seconds in what's okay-ish and then move out into the environment. It's a really good place to begin attuning to how the interoceptive system, which is the 8th sensory system in your body, gives you information about how you're doing. And I have some slides I can show a little bit more about that. Yeah. Lynn, would you like me to show some slides? Okay.
Please do. Are you able?
I think I'm gonna ask Shen for permission, or you. Someone has to give me permission.
You should have it now.
Great. So, healings. So, interoceptive system. Your interoceptive system, which is a network of receptors on organs, muscles, tendons, skin. These receptors link all the way up with a part of your brain called the insula, and they signal body states, things like thirst, hunger, whether you need to go to the restroom, nausea, tickling, pain, sexual arousal, headache, illness. That's the system that told me today, your throat is a little sore. There's an ache and a tension that I feel in my throat that's traveling up. This interoceptive system signals not just body states, like are you hungry or full, it also tells you about emotional states, sadness, loneliness, joy, guilt, happiness, anxiety, fear. I'm just going to pause here for a second to see if anybody who doesn't know this, I know my students who are here know this, anybody who doesn't know this, see how that can become a little problematic if you're asked to listen to the body, that the same system that signals thirst and hunger and tiredness also signals frustration and loneliness and excitement. And it's not like it's how I'm interpreting it. This is how it works. That your stomach that tells you how much to eat in order to be nourished and satisfied also tells you that the performance review that's coming tomorrow is reminding you of something that happened when you're 5. The same tissues. So that day, your eating might be a bit off. You might actually not be able to eat at all that day. Or all you might be doing is eating in order to cover over that emotion that was so overwhelming that the performance review is bringing up, dredging up from the alternate timeline. And emotional eating is a thing. That's very much my work. I wrote a book about it. Emotional eating is a thing because of this, because of our physiology, not because of our character. Yeah, very important to remember. So in neuroscience, there's 2 types of emotions. We call them both emotions. Affective emotions, things like happiness and irritation, frustration, nervousness, fear, and homeostatic emotions, hunger, fever, pain, illness, sleepiness. And we call them emotions because they work off of the same system. And hunger, when it's something that you respond to with food, we call that homeostatic hunger. It shows up, it tells you, oh, you're low on sodium, potassium, proteins, amino acid pool is getting depleted, eat something. And you eat, and the signal of hunger goes away. That's how homeostasis works. You get a signal, you have an action, and the signal dissipates. In neuroscience, what they call emotional eating is hedonic hunger. it's not something that is feeding the homeostasis of the body and supporting the biological homeostasis. It's serving something else. In this case, covering over emotions or covering over something else, numbing. Yeah. And we know what kind of emotion we have, affective or homeostatic, based on the sensations. So I had you check in a little earlier. And I've just put some sensations here, light and heavy and buoyant. And we're going to give you this list after today. Or open or flowing or spacious or stabby or disconnected or airy or fluid or wavy, neutral, alive, prickly, stabby, flowing, bursting, swirly, muffled. This is how the body speaks to you. The body doesn't say, oh, this is about Peter. The body says buzzy, tingly, constricted, nauseous, vortexy, disconnected, numb. Hurt if you tune in. And this is where I find listening to the body can become such a beautiful practice of inner attunement, that if you listen to the sensations and listen to the emotions that the sensations are connected to, that you can start to get some clarity about what you need. Oh, it's about Peter, and I feel hurt. I'm actually going to ask for conversation and an apology. If you don't spend the time to tune in, what's going to happen is you might eat on top of it, drink on top of it, exercise on top of it, sex on top of it, Netflix on top of it, do something on top of it, and you never actually hear what's happening. So as in any mindfulness meditation, focusing, noting practice, we're really going in and looking for what arises, but we're looking through this a little narrower lens in the beginning of sensation and emotion, and little by little opening the lens to now include imagery and thoughts and movement impulses and memories. And little by little, we see that there's always an inner landscape that's being painted. But if we don't slow down and make space, most likely what happens is we cover it over. And then what we hear is actually what we have done to ourselves. Oh, there's tension in my shoulders and there's tension in my jaw, and I clench my teeth at night. Those are the signals we hear that are the signals of what we did to numb the original flow of sensation and emotion, instead of what is the original flow of sensation and emotion. And if you sit with a well-trained somatic practitioner or therapist, and you start to go under the layers of the tensions and constrictions and resistance and all these things that we find in the body, under it, we're going to find the original content through sensation, through emotion. And why should we care to listen? Because the interoceptive system is there to inform you of two things: body states, which allow you to care for yourself on the most basic level, because you are a part of nature and you need to tend to yourself so that you can function and your body budget is taken care of, and you're not working on withdrawals all the time, not having slept or eaten or rested or walked. These are very basic things. But then, because our physiological homeostatic body budget determines our emotional resilience, the second thing we're listening for is emotions. And emotions are a little more complex than body states, right? Homeostatic emotions about body states, quite simple. Thirst, hunger, we can start to parse that out by listening and acting on it, not delaying it, not pushing it. But then emotions that have to do with coming closer, moving away, having to have a conversation, having to tune into what you really want, what you really need, those really come into the higher hierarchy of meeting our needs, where we come into the interpersonal space. And I believe listening to the body for physiological needs is oftentimes complicated because we have equally badly listened to both sensation and emotion, not because we don't want to, but because we live in a culture that doesn't know how to make space for that. And many of us are raised on performance and output and not on inner sensing and inner presence with ourselves.
Powerful. Really strong connections. So we're going to pivot just a bit here, and we're going to talk about something that I believe we've all experienced to some degree, and that I know influences a lot of your work, Galina. And that is, how does trauma impact our ability to listen to the body?
Really profoundly, if I had to answer with 2 words, with 4, makes it really hard. And this is where a lot of people come to me and my program after trying intuitive approaches for caring for their body and finding out that things like intuitive eating don't work very well. In the same way, intuitive resting or intuitive walking or intuitive sunbathing, like it can be anything that requires that you have enough of a connection with the interoceptive system, which means that you can sense your interior accurately to know what the body states are and what the emotions are that the system is communicating. And so when we experience trauma, and I'm going to use the definition of one, there's many definitions of trauma, but one of them is that trauma is not the event, but it's the way that we adapt it to be able to survive the event. That many of us, our systems get stuck, especially if we're looking at early developmental relational trauma, that we actually create our maps of functioning early on based on things that happened or didn't happen in our families of origin. And then if there's shock trauma, then there's these big events that we don't function the same after them. And the nervous system, being the vehicle of navigating safety and danger on the planet, adapts in one of 2 ways. Well, one of 2 main ways, and then there's mixtures between them, but we can adapt towards kind of becoming more hyperactive, more revved up, more vigilant, more alert, the system being on the go, 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 go. And that's actually something that's rewarded in our culture. So sometimes having that home base of fight, flight, the sympathetic arousal being predominant, actually can be something that people miss once that goes away, because they confuse it with productivity and with being on and having an edge. But really what happens is the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis is overactive. And so we're functioning as if we're not safe and as if protection is the main important thing that the system needs to be doing on the planet. And so then when we tune into the body, we might find tension in the shoulders, the neck, the jaw. We might find fast movements, revved up movements, decreased digestion, especially in the upper part of the digestive tract. And sometimes there will be a relaxation of the lower part. So something like IBS is really classic, with like tension on top and then relaxation in the colon. And we'll really find ourselves having all this charge that we're constantly having to discharge in some way, or that we're always on the go, or maybe somebody who's chronically always running to be able to function is very much stuck in that space. And so you can imagine, as you come in to listen to the body today on March 5th, 2024, I'm hearing something that has been there since November 29th, 1979, which was the day I'm told I was born. My parents are still arguing about what day I was born. And I'm like, can't make a decent horoscope, people. Have an agreement. But I was born with incredible high arousal. And so my system might still be running that. On the opposite end of the spectrum, if the system drops down as an adaptation to experiencing overwhelming events, might go into more of a withdrawal. And in that withdrawal state, which in nature we'll see in turtles, we'll see in reptiles, we see in a possum that freezes, in that withdrawal state, the system looks like it doesn't have much energy. This is the person that has a hard time getting things done, lots of procrastination, feeling stuck, feeling lethargy, apathy, and the body really feels like you have to move through molasses to get anything done. And those of you who've seen Zootopia, it's like those sloths at the DMV. The system is very, very slow. And if I tune in, I'm going to find that I don't have energy. I'm going to find that I have all this numbness, all these muffled signals. I actually don't have access to myself. I'll work with people who will be cooking and go inside their frying pan and move things over with their fingers, like not even needing to use a utensil because they don't feel themselves. And they'll get injured and not be able to get help in the hospital because they don't feel themselves. Things are numbed over. So it's hard to listen for what the body needs when the programs that are running, the survival system that's running, is actually sending signals that are 20 years old, 30 years old. And how do we move out of that? Is present moment awareness, over and over and over and over, returning to the present. I'm going to look around the room. We can all do it together right now. I'm going to see the pink flowers in my vase. Okay. I'm going to see that the sun is over the horizon, that far on top of the Rockies. There's some clouds on top, and it's late winter. I'm going to see that. I'm going to see that the grasses are starting to poke out of the ground. There's a few crocuses. And little by little, it's like, okay, I'm here, tuning into the present moment through the senses, and then internally through places in the body that are okay or okay-ish, so that the natural oscillation of the system can start to find connection and safety where in the past it was really going for protection. And so seeing that you're in a protective state, it's also a form of listening. We are just not hearing whether you're empty or hungry or full or tired, because those things are not important in a survival state. If something is happening that is threatening your integrity, whether it's physical or psychic or emotional, if something's happening that's threatening, my biological needs are not important right now. There's other needs that are more important to take care of. And so what we typically refer to as listening to the body, which is listening for the body states that need our attention, listening for sensations and then emotions that tell us how to take care of ourselves, that we don't have access to that because it's not important. You're not broken. Something else is running in the background that is still more important than this. And this is what people discover when they work somatically with somebody, whether it's one-on-one or in a small group program like I run. It's like, oh, what happens when that noise starts to go away? Well, that might take months for me to care for these programs that are still unpacking. And I might need support to unpack them before I'm actually left with a clear vessel and I can start to hear things like, do I want ham or do I want tuna fish? This is not important if you're trying to survive. These are not important things. Once you've survived, though, it's really important that your system knows that you've survived and you're alive, and you can come back to take care of yourself moment to moment, as we have talked as possible.
Well, I love where you ended because it reminds me of why I put the UPN chapter in the book, the unique personal needs. I discovered this as I was recovering, coming back and reclaiming myself at a younger age, in my 30s. And I feel like what you've hit on is a connection to listening to not so much an inner plumb line, which would be indicative of maybe core values, a visceral sort of personal need that goes beyond Maslow's hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
That when we check in with self, we find there is something that we need that maybe nobody else on the planet needs exactly how we need it. And so we may try to negotiate that away. And I have found that negotiating away needs means that one of them is going to run rampant through our behaviors. And so I'm wondering if you want to discuss that for a moment.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I recommend your book for the UPN chapter all the time. I'm like, if you don't read anything else, read that. Because really, the language you used of one of them is gonna run rampant, and it's usually not the one you think. That we find ourselves, especially in my space, people will go and use food for everything. It's like if all you have is a hammer, everything is a nail. And so oftentimes we see how such complex needs, as having positive separation, positive personal space, or positive connection, or having access to creativity, or positive touch, just very gentle, positive, kind touch, that can get hijacked by food or by alcohol or by any sort of an addiction, or really needing to be seen and mirrored and felt by somebody. That can turn into a love addiction when that need is not met. And so it's coming out sideways. And there's two ways that happens in our early development. So our relationship with needs, that really is developed through the skin, which is very, very interesting. In our early development, our somatic relationship with needs is really developed through the skin and through movement, through the movements of reaching, grasping, pulling. It's very, very interesting that these movements, like the moment you do this, you start to tune in with it, and some young parts of it can show up for people, that through movement and through the skin, we get our needs met. And there's two scenarios when our needs aren't met in early life. One is that we suppress them, because what's the point of tuning in with my need if no one's going to meet it, or God forbid, I'm going to get punished for having it. Or if there's simply not enough. There's 12 kids. But you don't have to tell me anything more about why you're dealing with emotional eating. Growing up with 12 kids, even if you had abundant food, there was not abundant of other kinds of food that we need to flourish and to really have our blueprint happen. And so I'm going to shut that down. And every time a need starts to rise, I feel bad. I feel shame. I feel toxic shame, actually, because it's this kind of prevalent shame that weaves and becomes a part of our identity. And so I just don't hear it. And so that's how people end up doing everything for everyone else, but never for themselves. Like I'll go and find, doctors for my friends to go get appointments, but I'm not going to the doctor. No, I'm fine. That's how you end up feeding everyone else, but not feeding yourself, or cleaning the house, but you haven't taken care of your inner boundaries and your boundary hygiene. Your internal house is not in order. And so that's one way. The other way is because it feels so bad to not have your needs met, it's actually nice to pretend, and that's what we call having a pride identification. It's a very fun word for it. That actually feel good that I don't have needs. I'm proud of how needless I am, of how self-sacrificial I am. Yeah, other people need a new bathing suit when they go on vacation. I don't. I'm fine. I still have my bathing suit from 1986. It's just fine. They've just come back in fashion, the high-waisted ones. I got it. And so there's a way that we either feel shame for needing or feel pride that we don't need. And so we disconnect from our needs, which means that I have to disconnect from sensation and I have to disconnect from emotion. I don't want to listen to this body that's constantly telling me what I don't have. What's the point? And that's where I'll teach my students, and I'm curious what you do with your clients, Lynn, where it's like, what's a fractal of that? What I really need is a month without anyone bothering me. Okay, can you take a day, turn everything off? And then when you do, see the mess you become the moment you have space, because you can't even do a day. Think you can do a day. And then we bring it down to, oh, I can actually do an hour. Great, let's do an hour unplugging. You think you need a month, that's possible, but do you have the capacity to use a month for rest? Most people don't. We become too restless when there's so much space, and we'll fill it with food, with thinking, with whatever, with the next class you take. We become restless when there's space. And so it's so important that we realize the disconnection from listening to the body goes back to, right? The genesis of that is either the shame identification or the pride identification around my needs were not supported when I was developing. And when we bring in ancestral patterns, when we bring in the lineage of all the women in your lineage, and men as well, not having their unique personal needs, and we're in a great place of privilege where we can even look at that, oh, we're not surprised that we struggle with that, because it's not as simple as finding a watering hole or finding where the honey bee make their honey in the woods. We're navigating a much more complex world than we did even 12,000 years ago. And so I think, and I really want to hear what you think about this, that unique personal needs, and asking what those are and finding how you need it. I need rest. How do you need it? I need positive separation. How do you need it? I need positive touch. How do you need it? That finding that unique thing for yourself is actually a journey back home into saying, I want to listen. And I don't care if I'm hearing. This is the thing that people get frustrated because they don't hear, or they don't hear correctly, or they think they don't hear correctly. It is your willingness to listen over and over and over again, even when it's confusing, even when you're not sure, even when you're stumbling, that you keep showing up on your end of the line, and eventually you start to hear. When I was learning to tune in with my organs, I remember, and I thought it was such woo-woo stuff. I would go to a yoga class and the teacher would say, sense your kidneys. I'm like, these people are insane. Who can sense their kidneys? There's a reason we don't feel our kidneys. And then in my somatic work, as I started welcoming more and more an interoceptive awareness of my organs, I was like, I'm going to go talk to my uterus. And so I have this big smile and I'm looking down and I'm sensing. And I'm like, well, what is it going to say? And it was like, I have nothing to say to you, and I'm not interested. Did I make that up? I don't know. But it's not what I expected, right? And so that will happen when people go to talk to young parts. I want to go talk to my 3-year-old. Your 3-year-old's not interested in you right now. But really moving through the frustration of these early times until we recover what we have had to disconnect from to survive.
Beautiful. The analogy I would bring in to complement is being on an airplane, and one of the attendants comes by and asks if you want water or a snack, and you say no. And as you see them going up and down the aisles, giving out these goodies and these beverages, your tummy starts to gurgle and it reconsiders. So I feel like it is a practice to find the unique personal needs. And sometimes, and that's why I start the book early with values and UPNs, because needs are more visceral. And when I discovered the modalities that I put in the book, the Salt of the Soul modalities, need was the one that wanted to talk, and want was the one that wanted to cry because it didn't have a clue what it wanted. But the need could talk, and it could say, I need to feel safe. I need sleep. I need just a fighting chance here. And so I would encourage you, as you explore needs, that if you're having a hard time hearing a need, ask about what you want and your possibilities, and something might spark there. Or just because you got a bigger no, I don't know what I want, you can come back and rebound into the needs and start with, okay, let's do HALT. Am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? You can start with some basic tools, because it is a two-step. I find that we either walk around in life like a raisin, where all the juice is gone, or a grape, where the juice is present. And a lot of times it's a two-step of asking yourself, what do I need? Setting up a system for that need to get met, and then springboarding off, what do I want? And having a possibility practice is what I call that. So, Galina, I don't think there's an easy answer, except that it is possible to hear it. And if you stay devoted to self, you have that devotion to self and listening, you will get answers.
That's beautiful. And I have to say that, some people learn through wisdom and some through mistakes. I'm the second kind. And it's worked very interestingly in my own life, and also looking with students, to do like a post-mortem of something, like when things don't go well. And I'll usually ask this question: when was the first moment that you knew that you were starting to get tired? For example, like somebody like twisted their ankle on a hike, right? They don't twist their ankle on the hike on the first step. It's usually after the body said, I'm tired, we should go back. No, we're not quitters. Look at what All Trails is saying. We're going to complete this loop. And I'll ask, when was the first moment that there was like some moment that you knew you were getting tired? Oh, yeah. Okay. And what did you do with that? Well, I told myself I'm not a quitter. Okay. And that there's times that we really need to be able to override. Like you're tired and your kid comes home from school and they're upset. Of course, you're going to override whatever you're feeling so you can support them, because they're fully dependent on you. But there's so many moments in life that we don't have to override. We don't have to push. Like, you need to go to the bathroom? You know what? You get to go. You don't have to wait till we finish the email. Nothing is going to change in 30 seconds. And so starting to notice when you actually override yourself is a huge piece of that practice. And when things don't go well, don't ignore it. Go back and see, what can I learn from not meeting my need there, or not listening? That there was a moment that I was hearing a faint, tiny little whisper. And I said, shush. Yeah. Because we're not quitters.
This has been a fantastic hour that we've spent with you. And I know we're going to open this up to questions if you have them. I'm going to just share something while you're thinking about your questions, because you can come off mute and pose your question to Galina, or you can put it in chat. I just keep feeling to say, this came in before we started and it keeps knocking on my shoulder. So it's one of those intuitive things, Galina. If you're not sleeping, if you're one of those people that's not sleeping because you feel like you need safety, the message for you that keeps knocking on my shoulder to tell you is that get as safe as you can. And maybe, Galina, you can riff off of this for the first question. Get as safe as you can get on your own, and know that there is someone or something coming to support very soon to add more safety. However, if that's a message for you, and it may be for you now, or for those who are going to listen to this later in the Evergreen series on our YouTube channel, how can we increase that safety now if we need it now, Galina?
So in my work, I'll often say safety is an inside job. And then in parentheses, for the adult. For the child, safety is not an inside job, it's an outside job. And so that transition from someone or something from the outside keeping you safe to you starting to feel safety on our own is usually done with some sort of a transitional object. Your blankie, your teddy, whatever the thing is that's dramatic if you lose it, right? Something that smells and feels like those who kept you safe. It's something that will work with people as I prepare them for surgery under full anesthesia, is we'll actually talk about when you are unconscious, who do you trust to watch over you and what the doctors are doing. I have not had a single time that somebody has said, no one's going to be there. Grandma will show up, an angel will show up, Mother Nature will show up, a tree branch from outside the window of the surgical room is going to watch over me. Something or someone's going to watch over you. We know, our bodies know what it feels like to be watched over because we develop in that space. And so if safety has been compromised, and it can be compromised because of, I've worked with people who got attacked in their home while they were sleeping. You know, it's like very real things that can compromise safety. Then we need to have our safety checklist. Doors, windows, tell all the parts of yourself that, you know, things are locked as far as you know, you've done everything that you can. And then when you come into your bed, and Lynn, I know you know this because we share a teacher that taught us this, maybe have colorful sheets. Don't sleep in white sheets. Most hospital sheets are white. Have colorful sheets. Put like zebras and unicorns on them. And then see what supports my body. What supports the body to feel safe is warmth and pressure. And so there might be tiny little weighted objects you put on your body. There might be a some little warm water bottle that you bring in, or something that you plug in. But that there's a way that we need to support the body because we're used to being held and being warm. That's what safety feels like when we're little people. And we can replicate that as adults with the appropriate weight and size, something heavy to support you, and appropriate warm. And picturing as you go unconscious, because being asleep is you're losing your ordinary consciousness. What or who is going to watch over you? Just like I prepare my peeps before they go into surgery under full anesthesia. Really, really important. And if there's actual trauma history, that, you know, these events might need to be negotiated and digested with the caring support of somebody who can do that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone with a question, please bring it forward. We have a little more time. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you want to ask your question anonymously, perhaps you can just shoot it to Lynn. Yeah.
Please do that. You can put it directly to me. I'll be watching for that if you want it to be anonymous. Now there's a message for you, Galina.
Yeah.
Yes, the pressure is doing miracles. It is miraculous. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm. No questions? No questions. Okay.
You must have been so complete.
Yeah.
And there's another one. Thanks for the, yes. Go ahead.
So may I offer an inner attunement practice then?
Please, please.
Yeah, okay. We started by finding a resting place in the body. Finding, and this is something you can do every day. Finding where your body feels okay or okay-ish, where there's movement, where there's spaciousness, If there's energy flowing. And then tuning into where you have support, whether it's through the back and the base of your chair or bed, floor, wherever you're seated, car seat. Tuning into where your body is supported. And if you could be a few % more comfortable, what do you need to do? To really sense that support is coming to meet you. Support is coming to meet you. And let's find a place that feels warm, maybe somewhere on the inside of the body, in your mouth, or your throat, your belly, some place that feels warm. And then finding a place that feels cool, a body part that feels cool, maybe your fingers. My toes are pretty cool right now. A place that feels cool, warm, and then cool. And can I hold both of these in my awareness? That there's a part of me, a part of my body that is warm, and in the same miraculous vessel, there is a part that feels cool. And maybe it's just shades of warm or shades of cold, depending on how your body's feeling right now. So looking for temperature, looking for climate, like checking in with the internal weather map. Where is it warm? Where is it cool? And then I'll invite you to do a very gentle shift of your weight. So if you're seated, just shifting your weight into one side of your buttocks and then to the other. If you're standing, that'll be one foot and then the other. Just shifting your weight. I'm making one side of my body heavy and noticing that the other side of my body is light, and then moving back to heavy, noticing light and heavy and light. And can I hold both of those at the same time? Can I host both heavy and light in the same body? And then we'll pause. And then I'll invite you to roll your shoulders. Maybe just roll them back, roll them forward. And notice that your shoulders are moving. What does movement feel like? And then pause for a second and notice what stillness feels like. And then move something else, maybe your head. Notice what that movement in your neck feels like. And then pause and notice the stillness. Warm and cool, heavy and light, moving and still. Starting to tune into the sensations of that. Tuning into the sensations of that. Tuning into your aliveness. Knowing yourself as a stream of sensations. And in that stream of sensations, You are a neutral observer. No judgment. Whatever shows up is good. Whatever you find is good. It's the looking that's important, not what you find. And my invitation to you is to maybe once a day, just to pause and make some space to listen to sensations. And if nothing's coming up, do some heavy light, do some warm and cool, do some moving and still. And in that way, you start to reconnect with the whole language inside of you that eventually takes you to your unique personal needs, and eventually to your values, and eventually to living your life here as your closest part of nature, and also as a very highly evolved being that carries incredible consciousness, which is so complex that we are animal and human at the same time. And this is where this becomes very real in our daily practice. Thank you for joining me. I hope that that was helpful, as something you can take away and you can start to do. And you can make it more and more interesting and complex as you follow along.
Thank you, Galina. You can see in chat a way to stay in touch with Galina. Some of you are already connected, but Galina has a gift. And Galina, would you like to talk about your gift?
Oh, sure. Many people who come to me struggle with listening to their body because of a nervous system state that is predominant, either hyperarousal or shutdown or both. And I created a workshop called How to Find Peace with Food workshop that is specifically about listening and tuning in when it's about food. But it doesn't matter if you're not interested in the food piece. It's just as applicable to anything else that you want to explore. And you can just come in and grab the workshop. There's a coupon code. The coupon code is PEACE, so you can get it for free off my website or what Lynn and Shannon sent out later. And really the workshop gets into the nervous system adaptations that make it hard to listen. And I also break it up with some practices so that you can start to develop more inner attunement.
Thank you. Yes, Bridget, I'm with you. That's a great gift. Yes. Galina, again, it's a joy to spend time with you, to learn from you, to listen to the gentle articulation of your healing systems. And so for all of you online today, thank you for joining us. Thank you for making this somewhat of a peace with self, soul-filled hour and a half. And so you'll get a recording of this so you can hear it again. And you will also be able to go to the Soul Salt Coaching, all one word, YouTube channel, and find this under the Courageous Growth series. As we finish up, Shannon, do you have any other operational or functional things we need to take care of?
Just expect your email later today with all of the links that we talked about and the recording of the call.
Thank you. Galina, since you've been the guest of honor, why don't you give us the final sign off?
Oh my.
How would you like to send us out the door? Take a moment.
Just with a deep gratitude and kind of a reverence for how much we need this and how rarely we give ourselves the gift of receiving in this way on behalf of our bodies. So thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Lynn, for hosting, for your incredible questions. Thank you, Shannon, for being in the background. Thank you, all new friends and journey mates. Thank you to all my students who are here and always supporting me. Thank you all.
With that, be well, and we will see you next month if you want to join us on this series. Thanks again, Galina.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you all.